I grew up in a Izmir family where my dad and my mom said you can do anything, you can be whatever you want to do, and of course you can do everything in life. And then I had to go to my ultra-conservative high school that they decided to send me in, and they said, oh, you're a girl, you can't do this or that, or oh, you'd have to go home at 5:30 p.m. because you're a girl and the others can't. And so it was very interesting having grown up like that, and all of a sudden the community's approach to you, boom, makes a big change and say, okay, you're a woman and you're different and you need to act differently and you have to conduct yourself differently, was a big one. And I'm usually pretty attuned and very savvy from a behavioral perspective, so I'll change my attitude right away depending on the person or the community that I'm in. So I became compliant for a while, and I was like, okay, I don't like this, but I have to, and this is how I have to deal with it. But then it became a big deal that I decided Izmir was probably too small for me because I wanted to do other things. I actually went on the exchange when I was 16, so I couldn't wait to get out. I was like, okay, I want to sign up and make sure that I go through these interviews, and they sent me somewhere, wherever it is. And I made it, and when I came, it was actually US, and this is where I picked up this accent. When you're 16 and they talk to you in English, you just listen to them and start talking like them. So I actually, if you talk to me, I have a horrendous Bostonian accent like my American sister at the time did. So that year was very interesting because not only I was infused into the Cape Cod, which is not a very typical American culture, but yet again, it's very American. But I interacted with something around 60 different nationalities because they were all AFSers and they were just tremendously interesting people. I had a best friend who couldn't speak. He was from Brazil. He could not speak a word of English the first 4 months that we were best friends, so we kept on smiling at each other. It was this really, really very interesting experience where it was almost like the global space become very small. And I just realized everybody's kind of like me, and I'm like them, and we're not that different after all, but they lived in distinctly different backgrounds, and they were as interesting as anybody I knew back home. And I really, really liked that aspect. So it was a very interesting year, and I think it was the year that I decided to be an international journalist. And look where I am, right? So I said, all right, this is my thing in life, and this is why I'm going to go to college, and this is what I'm going to do my master's in. And I was a very determined young woman, and went to school accordingly, went to Bosphorus University, studied political science as well as business administration, getting ready, worked in newspapers and magazines in Turkey at the time, even did some stint in a television station, and actually applied to go study broadcast communication arts in San Francisco, which I went to do my master's in. And, no surprise, I ended up in CNN, worked in CNN in San Francisco for a while, and I got all my heart set on wanting to be a journalist. And I don't know how I ended up, but I ended up being a technology person, which it was a great journey, ended up in Intel. For me, I decided that I need to execute, and I have to physically be doing something. I got too much energy that unless I'm changing something and I'm physically leading it or contributing to it and writing how it needs to happen, that I'm not happy. So it almost was a good thing that I realized that early in life, and I said, okay, well, maybe journalism is not going to cut it for me to observe and to reflect it to people. I just got to run and do something about it. So second flashback that I'm going to share with you is I finished my master's, went back to Turkey for family reasons, lost my mom, which was very difficult, but had to be there for dad. Started working in an internet company, then Intel poached me there and made me the regional marketing manager, and after that I became the Turkey general manager, which was very interesting. I never forget this day. They said, okay, now you have to meet the distributors. And I'm 28, I believe, or some young age at the time, and I never met any distributor, never sold anything in my life. really wasn't a business move, and I was a marketeer, to say anything. And I actually that day decided I had to dress incredibly conservatively, and I had to conduct myself very, very seriously. And there's some of you who know me. If anything, I'm the most bubbly person. I love laughing. I love dancing. If anything, I can't live without touching people. And so it was enormously difficult 1 or 2 years until I felt comfortable that I could start being myself, and it was okay to be a young general manager of a big company, and people wouldn't think you were weird. And so, but I had to go through that. And it was a journey. I also remember asking my manager at the time, who was the EMEA vice president, I asked him, do you think I have it in me that I can sell something? He said, oh, of course you have it. You'll be fine. And then it was a journey to learn about it. And my other flashback is the day I never forget. I became the regional director for Middle East, Turkey, Africa. And again, as usual, I'm the youngest, the only woman, the only Middle Eastern, anybody from the emerging markets for that matter, the blah, blah, blah. The list is very long that, you don't fit the demographics of the guys sitting on that board because they're all 55. They're either from Germany or UK or US, and they're men, and, the typical that you can imagine, and you don't fit whatsoever. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, what do I say, and when should I speak? And despite my bubbly character, it physically took me 1 year to start talking in the board. Although I was doing a fabulous job back, which I'll talk about, I still didn't feel comfortable, that I thought I was such an odd man out in that people, that I didn't belong, and I just didn't realize how important it was that they brought me there, because who I am was the important thing. They needed a woman. They needed somebody from emerging markets. They needed somebody young who actually was in touch with what was really going on the ground. And then, and this is the little part of the advice section where I learned that the more I spoke, the more power it was to me. And the more power I had, I felt I could speak more. So all of a sudden, this wonderful vicious circle started happening, that I spoke more, they listened to me. When they listened to me, I loved it, and I spoke even more. And so it was, oh, power to you, girl. And then they're listening. Oh, you must be saying something sensible, so keep going. Was this beautiful unlocking of a self-confidence that very often when I mentor women, it is the first thing I try to do, and I encourage all of you to feel that way and mentor the other young women you speak to, which is understand your strengths and only play on them. Forget the weaknesses. Who cares? We all have our weaknesses. But just make that wonderful list of your strengths and play on them as best as you can. What makes you different than the other guy sitting near you or the other woman sitting near you? Why are you so special? There must be some elements of you that make you the most highest emotionally EQ person in the room, or the most culturally savvy, or the smartest, or the one who understands marketing strategy. There must be something that makes you very distinct that you need to go play with it. And the more you play to it, the more you will exert power, and listening to the people around you is one thing. Now, back to my new job at the time, which is being the board member and running the Middle East, Turkey, Africa, which is probably the craziest place on earth in many different standards. And I've done that 10 years. And if I have white hair, which I do, it's because of that. And it's been a crazy journey in the sense that I probably saw everything. I went through the Egyptian Revolution. I was on the ground in Cairo. Lebanon got invaded when I was there. I mean, the list is very, very long. And I actually count myself as the expert in expurging people out of a country, making sure that they actually can go to safe havens, how to, everybody's phone numbers, half of them in my brain, blah, 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 all those things. And you become a security expert after a while. But that's only this little piece of the puzzle. They handed me this region where we had only 3 countries, and they said, okay, go knock yourself out. not much expectations. Of course it's going to grow, but if it doesn't, that's okay too. And we ended up, after 10 years, with 35 offices, but we were actually year on year, for 10 years, the fastest growing region in the world. And I'm proud to say I probably hired the best people ever. And I know they would give their lives for me, and vice versa. And we almost done it in a couple of times, which is the funky part. But I think it is that I'm going to go back to my AFS experience, my international wish to understand. Why are we think we're different? In reality, we're so incredibly same people. Whether you're sitting in Nigeria, chatting in Lagos, or you're up in, I don't know, Abu Dhabi having shisha with your people, or having tea in Morocco, or you're in Libya in the desert and discussing how to sell chips to somebody who has no clue what technology means. And ultimately it's having those discussions, talking politics, listening to their family problems, understanding and empathizing with very different people, but creating that bond. And ultimately, I think it is finding what makes you drive, what makes you happy, having those conversations ultimately. For me, it's making a change. When I know that, I am down in South Africa, I'll never forget this one little example I want to share with you. I also am very, very dedicated to Women Matters and done a bunch of stuff that I won't go through here. But this woman and I were chatting. She's like this big African woman in the township. And it's not Soweto, or it's not one of those posh ones. It's called Timbisa, which is a very difficult township outside of Johannesburg. And she told me one of the educations that she got through the NGO and what Intel provided her, she ended up opening up an internet cafe. And in this township, there's 1 million people. It is the only internet cafe. And what normally people do at internet cafes, as is, they work it so they make money. Kids come in there, they play games, they give you money, and then they leave. What she did is not at all that. She actually started teaching them computers, and she would give them certificates. And the people who would get the certificates would go back to the town, to Joburg, and they actually could find a job because they'd be so exceptional with that certificate of knowing how to use a computer. So, meeting women like that, or today in our speech, I talked about Tulin, who I won't stop talking about because she's so phenomenal. I met Tulin, who's a wonderful young Turkish entrepreneur, when she was only 25, and she's like, oh, okay, I have an idea, I don't know what to do, but I mentored her over the years, and she just lately became an Ashoka Fellow. She built up this website, it's called tarımsalpazarlama.com, where she basically reaches out to 1 million farmers through their cell phones, and they give them information about the climate and the crops and what have you. And she has over 30 people, makes a couple of $1 million of revenue, and I'm dead set proud of her and talk about her everywhere I go, as a phenomenal example of a young Turkish woman who can do. So speaking of women, another flashback. Helen Clark, I don't know if you know her. She used to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand for 9 years, and I'm very privileged to know her among an International Women Directors Council that I used to belong to. And she told me this story, and I go tell this to every woman I know, that she said after her prime ministry finished, she went and visited a school in New Zealand, and she made a little speech and everything, and as she was leaving, a group of very young girls around 12 or 13 flocked around her and kind of pulled her aside. Can we talk to you? She says, sure, okay. So in a very quiet voice, they said, do you think a man could really run our country? I mean, it's like, everything is about perception, hello. So I was like, yes. Nothing against the men here. I mean, you guys run the world already, so it's okay. There are pockets of the world with that little thing. But It's been an amazing journey in my previous job, which was to explain people why they need technology, which is kind of odd now, right? With everybody using technology. At the time, it wasn't odd. It was necessary to explain to governments and organizations and enterprises and individuals and women and elderly and children why they need technology to make a difference. But in my new job, which is running wearables for Intel, and that's why they brought me out of anybody in the world. I was laughing. I'm like, me? Why me? So going out and defining the future just makes me get up every day at 5 o'clock. I worry about it. I stress, and I love it. To define and design, what we should wear and how it should look. And yet again, what am I doing? I'm a woman. I'm not a guy, I'm not a geek. I didn't live in Silicon Valley for 40 years. I'm from Istanbul, I'm from emerging markets. I love fashionable clothes, and that is my strength. And that's what I'm gonna keep talking about while we design the wearables in my company. So moving on to advices that I haven't already shared with you, and just a couple of them will be, first, do what you love. Not a second of your life is worth trying to do something you don't enjoy. Life is too short. We spend way too much time at work. Just walk out. I've done that before. I'm so happy for the times that I said, this is not for me, goodbye. Just move on. It's always better. Never have I heard anybody who made a conscious decision to leave who felt bad that they have left. It's always leading to something better, is one thing. The second is, I did talk about speaking up means power, so I won't beat on that more. But the other is be very planned and network. I know we women are shy to reach out to people, and women usually freak out when I mentor them and I say, I want to see a list of people and exactly how often and when you're gonna go meet with them. And what are you going to say? They go, oh, that's called manipulation. I can't do that. Oh my God. And I go, no, you need a plan. And that's okay because others have a plan. So you need to have a plan, and it's okay to have that. And this one's a little bit maybe strange because I don't usually, again, I probably attended 200,000 women forums, and after a while we always give the same advice. I don't hear this a lot, so I'll just share this one, which is, invest in yourself intellectually is what I actually propose. Just to give examples from myself, my hobby is archaeology and history. And I do go work in the digs in the summers, and I love it. And I'll go to museums, and that's, my house is full of crazy things from around the world, and that's what I do. I visited 76 countries just to see these archaeological artifacts. And that's okay. It gives a piece of my brain that I keep exploring, and it keeps my intellect alive, and it gives me a wonderful speaking point, and it helps me to understand history and why are we the way that we are. It gives me a context of understanding why sometimes life is so difficult and we humans are so difficult. And the moment you can build that up understanding of life, then you're a deeper person. The deeper you are, the more valuable you are, right? And this is when you really start building up your career. Our careers and companies hire us not because of what we do, not because of what we did. They only hire based on our potential. And potential is about our intellectual depth, our understanding to present ourselves and understand the rest of the world. So my guidance for those of you who are interested would be build that value up as best as you can. It's good for you, helps you understand the world, but ultimately you learn, which makes you young. So with that, I'm so happy you guys hosted me, and lovely being here. Thank you.